I was reflecting on our first dinner together. It was shortly after our Series B investment. And it was me, you, and Graham, your new sales leader. At the time was your new sales leader. And, well, first we changed restaurants 3 times because you're like, Jubin, not this restaurant. How about this restaurant, this restaurant? I'm like, geez, I haven't even really met this guy yet. We sit down. And immediately, you and Graham are kind of negotiating the number. Has he even started yet?
He had started. He might have been there for a couple weeks at this point.
If that. This was his first trip to the Bay Area to spend time with the team, right?
That's right.
And you guys are negotiating the goal for the year. And the number was ludicrous. Whatever the number was, it was, I think, 15x growth for this year. And I remember, I think I texted Leigh Marie after, and I'm like, this guy's nuts.
You did text me that.
And I actually felt bad for Graham because, the sales leader in me, and I'm like, this guy's signing up for a path that leads to nowhere here. And you were like, no, we're gonna do it. And then, Graham, to his credit, was like, well, I'll sign up for it. Let's do it. And you've done it. You've actually done it. And not only have you done it this year, you're blowing that original number out. This business is going to grow 10 plus X this year. How crazy is that? Is that only crazy to me? Did you think you were crazy then too? And you knew it? Or does it also or is this just this is what it felt, this is what you thought it was going to feel like?
So I think it was probably some amount of irrational optimism, because you can kind of see the pipeline, right? You can kind of make some assumptions about if a bunch of things close, it'll actually matriculate. But then there's this entire process of actually building out a sales team. At this point, by the time we sort of got Graham, we had closed a couple large sales deals without Graham already. So I think we projected out every rep that we'd be able to have would probably be able to do the same. Obviously, a founder or a series of people that were on the founding team selling the product is very, very different than a sales rep selling the product. So that was irrational on my part. But I don't know, maybe there is a little bit of, if you try to goalpost yourself based on what other companies do, which is the triple, double, you're kind of going to get a middling outcome anyways. So you might as well set the bar really, really high, because you may actually exceed it, right? We had already heard of companies like Wiz that hit ridiculous numbers. So it wasn't unheard of. But in retrospect, I think a lot more things needed to be built than I thought were really necessary. And you kind of learn along the way. I'm sure we're going to set a crazy number for next year.
You're already talking about it.
Yeah.
You're doing it again.
Yeah.
You're doing the exact same thing again.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
And I remember Leigh Marie, I think we were look, if they do half of what they want to do, they're still going to be on a trajectory that is in a class of its own.
Totally.
And we're all right, that seems fair. And we're still this guy, what I thought, and I'd be curious to hear what you think. I was either he is, because every founder says, we're going to go do this insane goal, right? Everybody wants to do that. And once you did it, I was like, holy shit, they actually did it. And for me, it went from maybe he's a little nuts to, he's going to say he's going to do what he says he wants to do. And I don't know, for me, that was really refreshing. We don't always get it backed up in the same way. And maybe he's not so crazy.
I will say, I think all the best founders are at least a little crazy.
Yeah.
A little nuts.
You think so?
It takes a little bit of a crazy person to be able to do this job. But yeah, I'll say 2 things about the crazy number and then us hitting it and probably setting another crazy one next year. I guess one, I think it's just a testament to Varun and the team's ability to just they're one of the more dynamic teams I've just ever met. And we can obviously, talk more about this later, but they just have a history of being able to see an opportunity and seize it very quickly, and do things themselves that might be outside of their, normal area of expertise. And I think the very best teams and founders, it's just very clear that you can see their slope and how they improve across multiple dimensions, whether it's setting up enterprise sales processes and doing things before there's even really any sales team in place. It's just figuring stuff out. And I think Varun and the team just kind of has a demonstrated history of doing that. And then 2, there's this interesting trend now. I want somebody to redo the triple double benchmark because of like what we are seeing now in AI. I think there's both a combination of there's this just sort of massive amount of interest from consumers, from enterprises, from everyone to see the full power of this technology. It's only been out for a little while. Like ChatGPT only came out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So you've got like, it's very new. There's a ton of opportunity, and you're just seeing teams now kind of like blow past the triple double, and with fewer people because they are also able to use AI internally to sort of streamline processes. So I think that
rewrite it.
Yeah, I think the very best founders can rewrite it.
And to be clear, when we say triple, double, like this is the trope in venture that's like you go from your first million of ARR, you'll go to 4 million, from 4 million to 12 million, 12 to 24, 24 to 50. And that was like for a long time best of breed. But you're going to do the whole triple, double in like a year and a half, not 4 years. And maybe we do need to rewrite it. It's not about, like, it's funny because Varun, not just you, but your team always messages me like, are we the fastest? Are we the fastest? Like, is anybody growing faster than us? How quickly did Wiz grow? This this ambition permeates through the org. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I think we do have one of the more like competitive teams, I would say. Not even just on the sales side, but even on the engineering side. And maybe it's kind of like, maybe let's take the engineering team. I don't think the engineering team knows any better. It's not like they know that, hey, the limit is triple, right? I think maybe sales knows that at some point they heard that triple is a great number, but if you don't know the limit, then you shoot for the highest number you can. And anything kind of just feels reasonable at this point. I always think about it kind of interestingly. If anyone leaves their company at this point, their expectations on the next company are going to be ridiculously high. They're not going to be, hey, our
leaves
business.
Codeium, you're saying.
Yeah. They're gonna at this point be like, oh, like we grew the business by 2x. It's going to be like, okay, that's not that great.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a bug, not a feature of people that come from super successful companies because they've seen what world class looks like, and so therefore they've raised their own expectation of how everything should feel. And when it doesn't feel that way, they just throw their hands in the air being like, well, that's not the experience that I had at my last company. You know, that's like the delta between your reality and the expectations. Just like people just quit, just leave, you know?
Yeah, I think, one of the big things that I kind of took away with this experience is product market fit is you can kind of feel it when it's real. And like probably everyone that leaves their company is never going to kind of fake feel that, hey, this company has product market fit, which is that, hey, we kind of limped through over the quarter or over the year. They're going to know the difference, which is in and of itself like a very useful thing. Like I see this constantly where you take these people that went from Google and they try and start a company or they work at a company. And they kind of don't know that Google is the greatest business of all time, right? Like I try to tell other people Google's like this downhill slope, right? And as long as you're not a ball of mud, you're going to go down the slope really, really fast, right? You could become a VP as long as you can talk to people well. I'm simplifying a little bit, right? I'm not trying to downplay all the VPs at Google. But at the same time, when these people leave and start companies, they don't know what the baseline is because whatever baseline they write, it's going to be way worse than Google. And so they don't know what great looks like because they've only seen awesome. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So because of that, they kind of just like flail around. They don't know how to even make something that even is 1% as good as Google.
But do you think the company that you were at before Codeium, which is, I guess, your only job, right? The only non-internship job at Neuro, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And like, would you consider that a successful company?
The story hasn't completely been written yet, but I would say that the company was supposed to commercialize much sooner than it has, right? It is still not commercialized the technology. Just to set some context, it's an autonomous goods delivery company. The mission of the company was to build an autonomous vehicle from the ground up that does things like DoorDash, right?
Yeah.
A little bit different than Waymo in that Waymo transports people. And I think that was actually maybe a really, really useful experience for me because it taught me, hey, what is it like to work at a hard tech company? Because I truly do believe Codeium is a hard tech company, right? The things that we aspire to do are a little bit different than HR software, right? Like, I don't know what the future of our company is going to be. I don't know how to solve most of the problems at our company. Most of the technology for our company has yet to be created. The same is true in autonomous vehicles. But I think the biggest learning lesson for me from Neuro was, how do you actually build a hard tech company that is actually making incremental progress along the way, is actually profitable along the way, revenue generating? And we weren't able to crack that at Neuro.
Yeah.
And I think what I was kind of searching for, and I've always been searching for this, is a company with a grand vision that solves hard technology problems, but actually can make progress along the way, right? I don't know how to build a business like Neuro.
Doesn't that make it so much more satisfying knowing the other side though? Like, for example, my first job was at a early cloud security startup, raised a bunch of money, never found product market fit, did one big deal with Goldman for $1 million. And that was basically what we raised our money on. And then the next company, we went from like 1 to 15 million of ARR over like, I don't know, 2-ish years, 3 years. We're like, not a triple, double even. And it was like the craziest ride. I was like thrilled going through it because I was like, we have product market fit. Like, we can sell this thing. Like, people want it, you know? So I think when you know the other side, it feels so good probably to be in this seat now.
It feels really good. I think that working at a hard tech company where we were not able to commercialize actually taught a couple features about maybe how to posit building a company that is a hard technology company, but getting some sort of product market fit. I do think it's still kind of incredible. And I think, by the way, this is largely a result of the category of generative AI actually being valuable almost on day one, right? The moment ChatGPT landed, it was like valuable to consumers instantly, right? This is very not true about autonomous vehicles. I'll give you like a little example here. In 2015, TechCrunch ran a story that said, this is going to be the year of AVs. And in 2024, they wrote a story that said, is this the year of AVs, right? I don't think by the end of 2022, which is a month after ChatGPT launched, probably TechCrunch wrote, this is the year of generative AI, and it will be for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah.
And Waymo was founded in 2009, right?
It was founded in 2009. The DARPA challenge was like 2003.
Yeah.
So it's 21 years of technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is fun to see what's happening with you at the bullseye of this incredible time. Like, we have this wave of AI that's like nothing we've ever seen. Then we have this use case, which is what Codeium does, which is superpowering developers with code, which is all around structured text, which is perfect for AI. And then you have you and this team and this product that are like in the eye of this incredible hurricane. It's like what we dream about. Don't you think?
It is. You can't ask for much more as an investor. I mean, I'm very optimistic that AI will, kind of reach every area of our lives in every industry. But when you think about where are the most sort of hair on fire problems and the sort of best use cases, like coding is just one of maybe the top 3 use cases after like copywriting and then maybe like some sorts of customer support. Coding is like in the top 3 in terms of it being immediately useful now.
Can I revisit the conversation of like knowing how bad can be? What great looks like feels so much better. When you were at scale, you were like what, employee?
I was around 6 or 7. I was an intern when we were 3, but then full time, 6 or 7.
And scale is now whatever, like one of the hot AI, whatever it is.
Over
like
1,000 people.
Yeah, it's like a huge company.
Yeah.
Did you have any? Was it your first job?
It was my first full-time job.
So did you have any idea? I mean, at the time, it wasn't what it is now. Like, did you know how good it could be or what it was then?
Yeah, it's so funny. So when I was in college, I was a math and CS major. So I didn't even know what venture capital was.
Yeah.
Nor did I know what a SaaS benchmark was or triple double or any of that. But what I did know is, I knew that machine learning was something that I was really excited about. So even back then in the sort of like computer vision days, it was like I grew up doing math, competitive math, and then being in college, like where is the coolest application of math? To me, that was even, the ML classes at the time at MIT. And so I knew that's like an area I wanted to work on. And then I knew Alex Swing was a special person. And obviously I had not met, the thousands of founders that I've met now, but I just got very lucky in that one of the very first founders that I got to know was Alex. And so ultimately that's kind of what drove me to join. But I did not know when Alex made these insane revenue targets and just like, a lot of the stuff that he did was just so out of the norm. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's all that
Sounds
I
familiar.
knew. Yeah. It turns out that, maybe for the average company, it would be very different. But for like the very top tier companies, I think there's a bit of a pattern there. Yeah.
Yeah. How, did you guys meet at MIT?
Yeah, we met at MIT.
Were you into like doing math?
So I actually knew about Leigh Marie even before I went to MIT. This goes back to a thing of like a lot of us did math competitions in the past. I think you made RSI at the time, which is like this famous like research program that MIT Harvard runs for juniors.
What do you mean made it?
Like they only select 50 students?
They do, yeah. So they take like 50 high school students their junior year and they bring them to MIT over the summer and we do research. So I did math research.
Yeah, I didn't get into that. She did.
Okay.
Probably helps that I was from Alabama. They try to do some amount of geographic.
She's definitely trying to downplay this. I mean, she was the valedictorian of Phillips Exeter, right? So I mean, she's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, I had known about her even before I went to MIT, actually. But I did a lot of the same math competitions. Like maybe some folks were in the same circle. In fact, even Alex Wang. So a lot of people actually that work in Codeium, and we can get to this at some point, previously did math competitions as well. Like I knew them since high school, even since middle school. And our first employee, I went to high school with him. He was my roommate at MIT. He went to the physics camp with Alex Wang, and I think they may have even been roommates in physics camp. So like the connections to just the same set of people, it's a very small crowd of people actually.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when you, like now it's our business, when you see good people, you kind of like mentally slot them somewhere and be like, hey, whatever it is, in some capacity, I want to work with this person. Like now we kind of have to do that. But did you find yourself doing that then? Or did you feel like the bar at MIT was just so high that you're like, these are all like exceptional people?
Yeah, I think if I was to say the biggest privilege that I have is honestly just being born in Silicon Valley, right? Like a lot of the people that currently work at Codeium, interestingly, or the original groups of people, were all people that I just competed against in middle school and high school. And I would never have thought that they would be relevant in my life at this point, but they are just so incredibly talented. Like this place is it's very cutthroat. It's extremely competitive, very cutthroat. And anyone that makes it out of here is probably going to succeed in some capacity. And even at MIT, a lot of the people there were from the Bay Area or they did math competitions. And I don't think we really thought about it in terms of, hey, I'm going to like recruit these people to come work for me at that time. I don't even think I had deep aspirations to start a company at MIT. But no, it's honestly crazy how many of these people are still relevant in our lives. Like I talk to Douglas, my co-founder, all the time, and I'm just like, why is this happening? Why are the same people still relevant in our lives? Like, it's just like, I'm going back 15 years and these people are still like, I'm just looking at them right across the desk from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess like you're probably not thinking when you're in the middle of a math competition, like, wow, we're going to build a huge tech company together. Right.
Dude, I didn't even know that tech companies were like a thing. I kind of knew Google was like an important company when I was in high school. But beyond that, and I kind of learned about MIT in high school, but I was pretty narrowly focused on school / doing these competitions. I didn't really think about anything else.
Can I play something forward to you and get maybe both of your reactions to this? So, Codeium today there's stats everywhere on how efficient developers are getting or more efficient or what code is writing for them. Anywhere from 20 to 40% is like the range. Fair? Is that about fair?
I think that's fair.
Do you think it's going to get better from here?
Yeah. Okay. I think the ambition for the company is for it to get potentially 95+% more efficient. Like developers are going to be able to build application software potentially 20 times faster than if they didn't use Codeium.
So let's take the conservative estimate of that. Let's say developers can build code 5 times faster, which we're probably not even far from today. Like, what does that mean for the world?
Yeah. I think that, and this is, we'll see if I'm right. I think that the number of developers is only going to go up. Maybe the way they write software is going to be at a higher level. Like they're not going to be writing the same kinds of programming languages. They're going to be writing almost something that looks closer to English, that is a little more structured. than that. But the way I'd like to look at it is right now Codeium sells to the world's largest companies. And if I was to go to any global CIO, a chief information officer, and I ask them, hey, I'm going to give you back efficiency, what do you do? Probably 99% of them will say, I'm going to go and invest more in R&D. Because the way these businesses look at it is, let's say that you currently make $100 in revenue, right? The business can put in $20 into R&D. And the thought process is that $20 in R&D now yields $20 in profit. So next year they're going to get $120. Now, if that $20 in R&D is going to give them $40 of profit, just because R&D is now more efficient, they should be investing actually a larger fraction of their total revenue into R&D because it's a higher return on investment, right? So I think the point is actually, if the cost of technology goes down, I actually think we're going to get not just a linear increase in the amount of technology, we're going to get a super linear increase in the amount of technology. And I think the number of developers and the people that are going to be contributing technology only goes up. And this is a unique aspect of technology, right? Like the world is never going to be satisfied with the amount of technology that is getting produced. It's very different than food, right? Tomorrow, if Jubin, you ask me, hey, like Varun, I can make food 10 times cheaper. I'm not going to say, hey, I'm going to consume 10 times the amount of calories. I'm just going to explode at that point, right? So I think technology is a very, very unique aspect where I think there's no limit at this point.
And just to continue to pull that thread, if people consume 10 times more technology, then what?
I think abundance in the world. I think consumers are going to be very happy. I think GDP is going to increase substantially faster than it does right now. I think society is going to be better off for it.
Yeah. What do you think?
I agree with Varun. I mean, the way that I kind of like to think about it, maybe this is an oversimplification, but rather than, we're just faster, so therefore there'll just be fewer engineers, I just think that's false. I think we're faster, we'll want to do a lot more. Like I was a product manager for quite a while. I think of all the tasks in the backlog, at Scale AI that I would have totally done if I had had more bandwidth with my engineering team. And theoretically, if they're, twice as fast, even more as fast, I can get way more of those tasks done. And ultimately, I think software is just going to be so much better across the board. There's so many problems with software today. It's not personalized. There's just a lot of low-hanging fruit across tons of different industries. I mean, we can go on and on about all of the crazy large companies that still have, pretty broken software experiences. So I'm just very optimistic on us building more tech, writing more software, and just generally things being higher quality.
Yeah, but if you're let's just say my mom, okay, and you're going to the grocery store, why do you care if Safeway can produce 10 times more applications? Or if you're going to the gym, why do you care that Equinox now has developers that are supercharged in a way that they weren't before? Why will that actually make a difference to your life?
Yeah, I think the way software plays itself in a company like Safeway is maybe multifold. So let's take the first way. The first way is maybe they can more efficiently show people the goods that they want to buy. So shoppers have a better experience inside the store. That doesn't feel incredibly sort of innovative, but maybe that's step one. Step two, and this is me projecting a little bit more forward. When you look at the different kinds of software out there, the biggest kind of software that we have yet to crack that I think is going to be transformational to the world is physical manipulation, right? Think about robotics. At some point, Safeway will probably have some bots in the store that are programmed by software that can automatically sort of put goods or food inside your cart, and you just kind of leave Safeway and a robot just gives you the goods directly from the store, potentially, right? And I think imagine a world in which, and this is kind of crazy, let's say you need to paint a neighborhood. You just write a piece of code that says for house in neighborhood, paint house. And I'm simplifying a ton, but think about how crazy the world could be if you could actually almost do these kinds of operations. And this is what I'm trying to say, right? Things that you basically can't even imagine today are potentially going to be possible. Right? It's not going to fit the mold of what we saw in the past. It's kind of like how when the internet came out, people were probably how is this going to affect banking? Right? And the reality was most people were writing checks going in person, and now they do everything online, or they now do it on their phone. The modality has completely changed.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Can I ask you, going back to this idea of being in the eye of the hurricane, the biggest team what was the biggest team you ever managed?
At Neuro, the biggest team was probably around 15 to 20 people.
Okay, and so now the company is what?
It's over 100 people, so probably close to 110.
We're going to double it next year?
Probably more than that.
Probably more than that.
Yeah.
So, how does that work? Like, how do you, like, talk about the eye of the hurricane?
Yeah.
Like, you're so far, this tech has never been built before. This startup has never been seen in its current form before. This growth has never been seen before. You've never seen this team size before. Like, I don't know, how does that feel?
It feels scary, but also at the same time, the way we're growing the company, it feels not so scary. And I'll maybe give you an example. I think like we've run the company in kind of an interesting way. I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but we actually pivoted the company at some point to even get to Codeium. And we pivoted the company after making a couple $1 million in ARR. We were at a reasonable amount of ARR, not something that's like a venture style outcome, right? And at that point, we never hired a sales rep. And the reason why we never hired a sales rep for our previous product was because I didn't know how to increase the amount of sales. So I think this leads to a little bit of a mentality of the company, which is that we don't go hire positions at the company unless we're almost dehydrated. I think of the organization as if it should be this dehydrated kind of organization that is looking for water, and every employee is like water to the company, right? And we don't hire someone until we're incredibly dehydrated. And then the moment we hire that person, we're dehydrated again, right? So it's almost that every person we're adding, they get saturated the moment they join the company. And as long as we run the company in such a way where our ambition is large, naturally speaking, if you have a large ambition, you need more people, right? I don't think you can say, hey, we're going to do something transformational for the world and be a 10-person company. That seems a little bit faulty, right? But as long as you run the company in such a way where, as long as every person that joins the company is going to be underwater the day they join, it's probably going to be fine. Like, I think the biggest problem with larger companies is that people join the company for poor reasons. And I think most people are good. They're not, kind of like evil people, but in an environment where they don't have much to do, they're going to optimize for things that don't really matter, right? And then they start playing politics, they start having bureaucracy, they start hiring more people unnecessarily for their team to convince other people that their teams are important. And as long as we keep like the main thing, I think we're going to be fine.
When you, are you over this idea of like, I'm in venture, I'm no longer an operator, meaning like when you see this company growing as fast as it is, are you like, hey, that like, we got to let this hand play out. Like there's nothing I can't do anything. Like this thing's going. I don't know, like, do you stay up at night thinking like, holy shit, like, are we going too fast? Or have you found solace in the idea that you are riding shotgun at best? Maybe you're in the backseat of the car, like your hand's not on the steering wheel right now. Have you found solace in that?
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting things to say about that question. It's interesting. I mean, there's many different schools of thought in venture when it comes to like how impactful is an investor, how impactful should an investor be. And it's interesting. There are some firms that basically say you give the founder the money and you hopefully pick the very like the best people that are going to win, and you do no harm. And that is the job of the investor. And then there are some firms that, literally employ hundreds of people, if not more, to come in and then help the company after investing. I'd say I align probably with the Kleiner school of thought, which is good, which is there are things that we can be quite helpful with, but ultimately you are running this company, and that's why we invested in you as a founder. And so certainly, like, it can be a little nerve-wracking given how fast things are moving, how dynamic the whole space is, all the competition. But from day one, I've always said this: I go to sleep at night peacefully because I know Varun is in charge of the company, and I trust the decisions that he's making. And so, though we're constantly chatting on the phone, you and others at KP have been super impactful for Codeium when it comes to like the customer intros, the like market work that we've done, like building the sales team to the degree that it's gotten built in a year. But I like that. I think that we've been helpful and positive, but at the same time, ultimately, like the person and the team that is responsible is Varun and Codeium. So I think it's a careful balance, and I think that I'm glad that Varun and I have the relationship that we do, where we can probably be pretty honest with each other, like what's good and what's bad, and how to.
Do you agree with that take?
I agree with it completely. I think maybe one thing about Leigh Marie in particular is like I respect her opinion a lot. Like I think a lot of people in venture capital, likely speaking, don't really understand the technology, right? They don't see where the puck is going, and they're trying to play maybe a pattern recognition game. And I think she's able to see beyond that. And part of it is also, not only is she very smart, I think also being at scale. Scale is like an anti-pattern to basically every company. And this company is constantly reinventing itself. I think we have had to reinvent ourselves once. I expect ourselves to have to reinvent ourselves again, right? I tell everyone at the company, expect something shit to hit the fan at some point, and that'll happen over and over and over again. And I think the fact that I know that she's seen that, she's like very intelligent, means that I can have like very honest conversations about, hey, maybe we need to change the direction of X completely, right? And that's like very comforting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a school of thought on this tension of like venture firms should do nothing, which is actually the like where Leigh Marie came from, was that was the posture of the firm, to hey, venture firms can actually help. Like, do you fall anywhere on that linear camp?
Yeah, I actually think so. I think maybe let me put it this way. I think venture firms can be incredibly helpful. I think they can be also very harmful. And luckily speaking, all the investors we've had have been like very, very helpful. I will say like the biggest thing is when we actually pivoted the company, we pivoted after raising a Series A. So we had already raised $28 million in revenue, $28 million of capital, right? And we're at a couple million in revenue, and we're telling our Series A investor, hey, we're just going to torpedo the entire thing. And we're starting from square one again, right? And by the way, at that point, the fact that they were just like Green Oaks in particular, they were just willing to just say, hey guys, just do what you think makes the most sense, was very freeing, right? Because for us, it would have been terrible, honestly. And by the way, I hit myself over the head over this. Should we have pivoted 3 months earlier? I always ask Douglas, this my co-founder, should we have done this 3 months earlier? Because every month matters. Every month is very, very important. The fact that I didn't need to worry about that and we could just go with our instinct was huge, right? But then also working with you all at Kleiner, I've also gotten to see, hey, like maybe actually there's a way to accelerate the business substantially faster, right? Maybe there is a way to do all these things, and you guys have been incredibly helpful to us. And yeah, I think you have been incredibly additive to actually our experience. This has been more than just, hey, letting us go our own way, right? Being a thought partner, being actually able to introduce us to customers and partner with customers early on in the life cycle of the company, I think has been incredibly helpful.
When you were pivoting, the company, at any point did it cross your mind that this was a bad idea?
I think the answer is no. And the reason is because we had one path, which is certain death but slow, and the other path which was high probability death but fast.
But was it actually certain death at that point?
I do want to emphasize one thing which cracks me up. The way that Varun talks about it, you would think, oh my God, this company's been around for like 7 years and they've made like a few million in revenue. No, it was like if you just did the naive like graph of the revenue, they were like best in class.
They're like on the path to a triple, double.
But I mean, and this is and seeing that, like if you were just kind of playing the founder game for the vibes, or just like just listening to what the average person would tell you about that, you'd be like, oh, I'm doing great. I should like pat myself on the back, and we should keep going, and we should take the $28 million and just like keep doing the same thing. And that's just not who Varun is or who the team is. And I mean, that's why I'm so confident that like if something does come up, if there is a new tech development, a new competitor, whatever, I'm very confident they will do it again.
Right.
Yeah. If they need to do it.
Yeah. Like it wasn't like you can't. Maybe you're looking backwards through rose-colored lenses, but you're telling me at that moment in time, after raising a Series A from a legitimate venture firm with a pretty big Series A, mind you, doing something that was actually solving customers' problems, that it was an easy decision?
I guess the big issue was maybe this is where I try to be in like sort of a student of the game. So one of the people, our early sort of angels, was this guy named Carlos Delatorre, right? And he is the CRO of MongoDB. He's kind of telling me the story of how enterprise sales kind of grows. And at this point, there's this famous book by John McMahon called, The Qualified Sales Leader. And I'm reading this book, right? And we never hired a sales rep, so I'm the seller at this point at the company. I'm just like, there's no way this scales, right? We're selling to a handful of customers. I don't know how to even 3x this or 5x this in the next year, right? we can't even hire a seller because, by the way, this is the other thing. The company's DNA is not to go hire someone if we don't know how to do it. We hire like good people. If those good people can't get us 1% of the way there, we don't just hire someone to get us 100% of the way there, right? So we can't hire anyone. We're kind of stuck. We don't have a lot of great signal on what to work on next. Maybe we can eke out like, $1 million here, $1 million there, but how is this thing going to scale to a business that does 50, 100, 200, $1 billion in revenue? And there were a couple of other things that also kind of bothered me a ton, which was actually, we pivoted in the middle of 2022, which was when sort of the GPT 3.5 model started to become very, very popular, right? And that model actually gave us a lot of confidence that our business made very little sense. And the reason is because we saw that the transformer was getting very popular. And if one model architecture, which underlies the GPT models, gets very popular, what are we doing by providing infrastructure for GPU systems, right? We were basically going to provide a commodity. It's like asking, hey, Jubin, how cheaply can you run 1 + 1? You'd say some number, I'd say some number, and it would be a race to the bottom. And both of those factors in conjunction were enough for me to say, hey, I don't actually know how we can do something differentially better for customers. And I guess, once you convince yourself that's true, there's no way to unconvince yourself, right? Like, we have smart people at the company. I guess that's another thing. We have people that I think are much smarter than I am. And it's hard for me to lie to them. It's hard for me to tell them, hey, this business is awesome. Keep working on this problem, because we work very hard. We're an in-person company. People are at the company like late at night. I can't continue to motivate people. I think I'm like a pretty sort of convincing person, but if I don't believe it, I can't motivate someone.
How big was the company when you pivoted?
So we were actually 8 people. So we were free cash flow positive at that point. So we were making more money than we were burning.
And did all 8 stay through the pivot?
Yes, all of them.
And how long before, from the moment of pivot to when V1 or alpha, whatever, of Codeium was released?
I think it was probably 2 months.
2 months?
2 months.
Which feels very fast to me.
Yeah, I mean, we needed to. Otherwise, we'd lose morale at the company.
And then how long after those 2 months did you close, did you close your first deal? Or did you start to get a sense that maybe we have something?
No, in fact, it was actually really sad. It was really sad. So maybe at the time it didn't feel really sad, but we were getting users. We never got users very quickly, right? We were
giving away the product.
We were giving away the product for free. So this was an interesting thing that we did, which was that, hey, instead of being an obscure company, what if we became a company that more people knew about? Let's not focus on value capture. Let's focus on value creation, right? So we created this individual product, Codeium. We gave it out for free. The reason why we were able to give it out for free is we were originally an infrastructure company. So we were able to run really, really efficient infrastructure to go out and give the product away for free without burning a lot of cash, right? So we never got users that quickly. We did have enterprises sort of start to reach out to us in January or February, right? So the launch is in November. We have enterprises reaching out to us in January or February. And then one of our big competitors at the time is GitHub, right? They have this product out called GitHub Copilot. And in March, they release this thing called Copilot X, okay? And this is like a vision statement from Microsoft. You wouldn't have expected Microsoft to come out with a vision statement, but it's a bunch of features of what they're going to do. They have yet to build 95% of what's in Copilot X, and it's been over a year and a half. But at that time, all these enterprises get spooked. They're like, hey, why would we go work with Codeium if Microsoft is saying they can do Copilot X? The reality is they could never do that. And the morale hit internally at the company was so much higher because we could not believe that Microsoft would be making a vision statement. We thought everything that they said they would do were going to be things that they actually did. And it took us many months after that before we actually closed our first enterprise deal. But the morale hit of the company was very up and down. It was like, hey, we got some users. Hey, an enterprise reached out. Hey, all the enterprises are pulling out. Hey, we're getting more users. An enterprise came in. An enterprise actually closed. A good enterprise that we thought was going to close didn't close. And then it's always been this kind of roller coaster ride, which has actually been very good for the company. Because I think people work very hard, but they are not deterred by bad news. Right? When bad news happens, the first thing all the employees at Codeium want to do is act and do something to kind of do better, right? Not like get very demoralized. So I actually think the pivot and all of these things were the best things that could ever happen in the company. It's forever changed the culture of the company to be this like super truth-seeking company that is willing to move really, really quickly.
How many competitors do you think you have today? When I say competitors,
Yeah.
I mean people that are attempting to do this have raised a ton of money.
Yeah.
How many do you think there are?
The number of people that are direct competitors, maybe I can count on one hand at this point. But there's like a lot of these companies that kind of have raised a lot of cash without a product in the market.
Hundreds of millions that have never released anything.
Never released a product. This isn't uncommon though. This is not very uncommon. I sort of worked in autonomous vehicles where all the companies were raising billions of dollars and none of them have yet to ship a product. And in fact, it's very like satisfying for me to see that, because for me, what I'm thinking is, what are their employees thinking? How are their employees thinking they're winning? Right? They're seeing other companies that are satisfying customers, that are scaling the number of users. Their employees must be so demoralized, and that gives me a lot of solace every day.
And Leigh Marie, for you, as you we looked at all the companies. The challenge with making a bet in the space is that's our bet in the space.
Correct.
And going back to my earlier point of this is the mother of all markets in an incredible space that's perfectly tuned for AI. How did you make this one?
It's a great question, and I think one of the challenges of being a true multi-stage generalist investor is that you can theoretically invest in any private company at any time, and so you can pick a seed early on. You can say, "Hey, this is our bet in the space. We really like this founder in the space. Let's do it at the seed," or we can wait and we can get sort of more traction, more data.
Yep.
There's no guarantee that you aren't going to have to pay some sort of crazy high price, or there's no guarantee that you'll even be able to get in the company after it becomes consensus enough. So it's constantly something that I'm thinking about, especially when there's a great space like this. And so when I started actually at KP, this was in mid 2023. So this was months after they had pivoted, they had started to get some customers, especially towards end of 2023, and a lot of momentum. And so basically when I started at KP, the thing that I was working on the most was cogen, just mapping out the cogen market and figuring out who should we partner with?
Because you love the space.
I love the space. I mean, and I love the space because I think there's the opportunity to build a giant business. Personally, though, I also love the space, given that it's AI and engineering, two things that are just kind of very core to who I am. And so when I got to KP, I just started doing a lot of prepared mind work, making sure that I had met every company, knew everyone's strategy, knew everyone's sort of founder quality potential, and then it became very clear after I just started this doc with all these different companies, no, the correct opportunity is just to get into Codeium as fast as possible. And thankfully I had a team that was very supportive of us doing that. So I'm happy to chat through the thesis of the Codeium whatever.
I guess at the time it was not that it was early.
Yeah.
It was so early. So there was still no data, really. There was probably less revenue in this version of Codeium than Exafunction had done at the pivot.
There was.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was so early. So really at the time, it was just Varun, the team, and then the market, right?
I agree with that somewhat. I do actually think, though, that we had some sort of asymmetric information in that. And this very well, Jubin, but we're just very involved with CIOs here, right? We have multiple CIO networks that we're a part of. And I think the sort of value prop that Codeium is going to be this more secure, more context aware, more sort of extensible, will play nicely with any dev tool stack. That sort of value prop, maybe at first glance is oh, well, no, probably everyone just uses GitHub and Microsoft for their whole entire code base. And, why would they need any of that? And it's just so untrue. The average enterprise has a very fragmented set of dev tools that they use, have come up to problems in terms of the sort of contextual awareness of certain code assistants. And it just became clear talking to CIOs that these were real problems. And so having that sort of data from the CIOs plus the usage of Codeium in particular, we did get some usage numbers before we invested, was off the charts. I think, my partner Moon compared it a bit to Figma, just in terms of how much are people using this product and loving it.
Yeah.
So we did have some amount of data. So, we certainly, there was a bet that we were making kind of on the momentum. I think it's kind of surpassed our wildest dreams in terms of what it did. But there is some amount of data.
What's really cool to see, and we're still talking about this year, right? We're all still, this is still from the beginning of this year till now. I remember at the beginning of the year when we would talk, it was very much about hey, we think the early customers are going to be security conscious customers, people in the defense industry, JP Morgan Chase. They did end up becoming customers. That's interesting signal. But then very quickly, not banks and defense departments were signing on to be customers of Codeium. And then I think it widens the aperture of what that opportunity could really be, which just made us more excited. It's really crazy. It's amazing that this has only been this year. Varun, can I ask you, you had mentioned hey, we're going to go build we pivoted because it's not going to get us to a $500 million or 500 million billion revenue company, the previous version. Why do you care? Why does that even matter to you, building a company of that scale?
Maybe the reason is a little bit of the motivation for doing the company in the first place. We hire actually amazing people. I think these are people over 35 to 40% of our engineering team is from MIT. But I think even that the people from MIT, I think are the top 3 to 5% of all of MIT that are coming to the company. And I think the reality is if we don't build something great, these people have no reason to stay at the company. And I want to work with great people. And if I can't work with great people, I'm not that interested in a middling outcome for the company. I'd much rather, work at another sort of innovative company that I could build something crazy. I tell people this all the time, but if I was able to work at Starlink, at SpaceX, and I was one of the first 10 people there, and I was able to give millions of people internet, I would do that. I wouldn't start a company. My motivation has always been, can I be a meaningful piece, a part of a visionary company? And if we're gonna be B2B SaaS XYZ software, I don't think I'm that interested in that.
Does it get old? I asked you this question when we were going for a walk, because you were kind of how would I describe it? You were very keen on understanding how quickly are you growing relative to other people? How are competitors doing? You were very just concerned about everything that was going on. And I'm this is just how he is. He's just always on it with every single detail all the time, relentlessly on it. And I think I asked you, does this get exhausting? Does this feeling of being so almost neurotic about every detail in every part of the business, in the market, does that tire you out?
I think actually the pivot and actually has made me more anxious, because basically what it has shown is with new information, if we move very quickly, we get to the right answer faster. So actually, my takeaway of all of these things has not been, hey, maybe it's fine to sweat the small things and not know a better thing that we could be doing for a little longer. It's actually made me have more urgency. And I think the nature of the space, given how quickly everything is moving, we just cannot expect to be the same product every year. Every year, we should almost be cannibalizing the previous year's product. We should almost make the previous year's product seem silly. And if we're not on a path to doing that, I think we're on a path to death. Maybe the right way to put it is, I respect Microsoft a lot, right? They have more resources than us, more capital than us, more distribution than us. And I think we can innovate substantially faster than them, right? I think a lot of the people that joined us would not want to go work at Microsoft. But I think if we take our foot off the gas and we are not innovating very quickly, they will very quickly commoditize our technology. It's not really they might have people that move less quickly than we do, but with enough time, they will find a way to commoditize the technology. And I think I'm perennially worried about, are we moving at the speed we should be moving? And honestly, are we moving fast enough on product? Are we moving fast enough on distribution, right? The way I like to think about it is product defines the ceiling of the company, and go-to-market defines the exponential curve you take to get to that ceiling. And it's constantly this game where we're trying to increase the R value, the exponential rate of that exponential curve on go-to-market, and then also changing the ceiling of the company. And if we're not changing the ceiling of the company fast enough, the ceiling is also coming down because the technology is going to get commoditized quickly. And I think there is a good deal of paranoia for everyone at the company, right? A healthy amount of paranoia for everyone at the company. And yeah, we just signed up for it working at a startup. We're not at Google. So, it is more painful to work at a startup than it is to, our company than it is at Google. And we've kind of just accepted that. And I guess I've accepted that too.
Can you take us into, you're releasing a new product in the next couple of weeks. By the time this airs, it'll be out. Can you take us into the walls of Codeium on Castro Street? Is it on Castro?
It is on Castro Street.
In Mountain View.
In Mountain View. Yeah.
Not SF Castro.
Yeah. In Mountain View.
I'm a big South Bay guy.
You're a big South Bay guy.
Yeah.
Can you take us into the walls of Codeium, like last 2 weeks, sprinting on this product? What's it feel like inside the company?
I mean, it feels awesome. Like, one of the things that I was really worried about is, as the company got bigger, would people not feel as much passion to go and work very hard, right? Because our company at this point, since the beginning of the year, has over 5x, probably close to 6 or 7x in size, right? And engineers are at the office until 3 or 4 a.m. to make sure we're able to hit this deadline, right? It's self-imposed, right? I'm not out here asking everyone, like, you have to be here at this time.
But are you at the office till 3 or 4 a.m.?
I'm at the office pretty late too.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be weird if I wasn't and everyone else was working very hard at the same time. But no, it's people, and this actually comes down to what Leigh Marie said. We picked a problem, and this is the important thing. The problem that you decide to work on actually is very important. We picked a problem that engineers are very passionate about. Engineers are passionate about how software could be revolutionized, right? The way to create software could be revolutionized. So everyone at the company is a missionary, right? They're not only brilliant, they're also missionaries for the product they're building. And I think the last couple of weeks, we've decided to go out and build this IDE called Windsurf. And I think it's going to be really awesome in that it's going to let the creativity of the engineering team to have no ceiling, right? So far, we've been playing in a couple of these walled gardens, a couple of these other IDEs and IDEs are the platform that developers write software. And I think the ceiling of creativity for the team is going to be uncapped, right? And it's exciting to see the team working this hard. And if you think about it, the original sort of group of people at the company, they kind of built the product without us even knowing how we'd make $1 of revenue, right? So the motivation has always been, we want to find a way to completely transform the way in which software gets built. And along the way, we realized we could build an enterprise business that could be like one of the world's largest enterprise businesses, hopefully. But it'll be great to sort of go back to kind of basics on this.
Can you tell the story of how the Dell partnership came together?
Yeah, so I guess the crazy story, and so we got an inbound message from Dell middle of last year. Might have been, actually it's early last year, 2023. And we're working with the team. We're trying to see how can we get Codeium to run internally at Dell, right, for their developers. And we're doing this, but they're unable to get a GPU machine, because our product actually runs on GPUs, right? We need to use a lot of deep learning to actually make the product run. And we're unable to acquire a GPU. And in the meantime, for some reason or another, I'm talking to Bipul, who's the CEO of Rubrik. I'm just messaging him. I cold messaged him on LinkedIn. I'd never met him in person. And largely speaking, the only reason I asked him was Codeium can run on-prem. Can run on-prem or in a self-hosted way. And I just wanted to understand, he's built one of the largest, I guess, on-prem businesses that are recently created, right? Rubrik has recently gone public. I just wanted to get a couple pieces of advice from him. And I talked to him on the phone, and he gives me a lot of useful advice. Some of that advice I still tell the team today, which is very generous of him. I don't know why he even bothered. He has no ownership stake in the company. He didn't benefit at all. We're meaningless to him in like the rational sense. And after that, he was like, "Oh, it seems like you're having some problems with Dell. Let me go email a couple folks." I'm like, "Okay." I mean, this that's great that he said that. A lot of people say they're going to email a couple folks. The next day arrives. It's Saturday. And Saturday morning, I'm on an email thread with Michael Dell himself. Right? He's just like, "Oh, we'll get you settled out, Varun. Like, hey, here's a box. Like, here's a team. Here's our president of sales." And just immediately, the tone of this conversation has completely changed. Right? Like, Dell is now just able to get up and running almost instantly. And I think the cool part about the story is not only that Dell is like one of our biggest partners and customers right now. I think the coolest part of the story is how these moments of kindness. Right? There's a lot of things that were random in the valley of how people have helped us get to where we are, where there was no reason for them to, or there was nothing we could do to return the favor, right? Because our company made very little revenue, or we had very little traction, and just very, very grateful that we live in almost Silicon Valley where everyone wants to pass it forward, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. Bipul was here, by the way, 2 weeks ago, speaking to a group of CIOs that we bring together a couple times a year. And I asked him, "Why'd you do it?" And he said, "Because I felt like I owed it back to the system that kind of like raised him." And that was just a really cool answer. Like, that was just a really cool answer. And he knew he didn't need to do it. And he knew he did it because he probably saw himself in you and saw you as kind of the next up and comer that he felt like he owed. And going back to your point of like how special this place is, like that doesn't just happen. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's actually miraculous. And by the way, like I also take, we're not, I genuinely try to, tell people we're not like a meaningful company yet, right? We need to prove that we are a company to reckon with, right? We're so early in our journey. So I don't think we should get very confident about where we are. Everything we have could disappear at any point. I tell everyone this at the company. But even whenever I can, if someone's like, hey, I want to go start a company, I will try to take a while, potentially hour and a half to like talk to them about, their idea, what they could do well. And like ultimately there is a little bit of and this is where I try not to be too prescriptive, which is that every company is different. I'm not going to understand their business better than them, but actually taking the time to understand how I can be the most helpful, because this is like a hard journey, and it's nice to feel like you have a helping hand along the way.
Leigh Marie, do you ever, like with Varun, like we both know him pretty well now, like I don't think it's possible to increase or push his ambition. Do you? How do you think about your relationship to his ambition? Because in a lot of cases, folks will say, hey, where venture capitalists can be particularly effective is raising the bar on a person in a company's ambition that they can't even see. But with Varun, in my mind, I've always felt like, I don't know, like his ambition is limitless. I don't know. Do you have a reaction to that?
I mean, the ambition is totally there. I don't think I can raise the bar on Varun's ambition. I do think, though, that, I can offer a different vantage point than Varun has. I mean, basically, since I've operated for, years at scale, I think VCs have a very unique vantage point into the whole, like, Silicon Valley ecosystem. And, many people in Silicon Valley, and this is one of the reasons why I love it, many of us are extremely ambitious. Like, we say all the right things when it comes to, building big businesses or things like that. But then, you have to live it out, and you really have to like come up with not just the right sort of work ethic and team and attitude, but also the right strategy. And so I think that's really kind of the only way that maybe I can even try to be helpful is in some of the strategy and in some of, I guess, KP's just unique advantages when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
But I just want to add too that both all the answers to these questions, they kind of sound like an ad for Silicon Valley and working in person. Because, I think if you're a founder and you're thinking about, like, where do I have the best chances, the ecosystem here, how much pay it forward there is, like how much anywhere you go, whether it's an SF or in Mountain View, you might run into somebody that becomes a really important part of your company's story. I just don't think you get that anywhere else. And I also think that to get the full benefits of that, working in person, like Varun told the story about him, staying up at 3 and 4 a.m. with a company. I have a very similar story. Alex Wang would stay in the office all night and label tasks. If we did not hit our SLA for customers in the early days of scale, Alex would be labeling. And so I was labeling. So I would code during the day, and then I would label during the night all of these tasks. And there's just no way if we were remote and I was not next to Alex doing that I would have done that. And, was that essential to scale success? I think so. Like, I think that if we had lost some of those customers in the early days because we didn't have like all the taskers that we needed, it would have not made it. So this is my ad to build your company. I'm very biased in Silicon Valley in person.
Is it unfair of me when people want to build technology companies, whether as a founder or an operator, but they refuse to move to San Francisco or be in the Bay Area? And I'm kind of like, I question their ambition. Is that unfair?
I think it's, you know what? I think if you're building a real technology company, I think it's hard. You're stacking the odds against yourself, right? Because just think about what the Bay Area really is. It's a bunch of people from a bunch of places that are selecting for they want to work on technology, right? Like people that really want to work in technology, and I'm not trying to like diminish Ohio. They don't decide to go like, settle completely in Ohio, right? That's not going to be where all the technology talent is going to be. Yes, you need to pay a premium for people if they are in Silicon Valley, but hey, if you're starting a company, your odds of success are close to 0.1% when you start anyways. So why are you stacking the odds against yourself, right? I try to treat it as, hey, like, look, I'm trying to basically run through fire right now. Why do I want to give up a leg right now, right? And I'd rather have all my legs, and if having these super expensive legs and I can't scale at some point is a problem, then we'll deal with it then, right? But it's it's a little bit of a premature optimization to be like I can hire way more people, because I just think a lot of people try to view building software and building technology like it's building a factory. It's kind of not. When you hire great people, it's like there's this classic meme of like having a 10x engineer. It's kind of real. Okay, but the thing that the meme doesn't actually capture is when you hire someone that's 10x better, you can't just replace them with 10 1x people, right? Because the 10x person is going to be thinking of ideas that none of these 1x people talking to each other are ever going to think of. They're never going to come up with it. So optionality in the company disappears. And if you're running a company where the entire company can be run as solving tasks on a Jira task board, then fine, like go and build your remote company that sells B2B like telephone text messaging software. That's fine. But like if you want to build a company where like you don't know the answers to questions and you want to hire people that are very ambitious, motivated to solve problems, like you got to do it here.
How quickly, maybe I'll pose this question to both of you. How long do you think it would take for you to figure out if someone is a 10x engineer?
I think it's pretty fast. It's very fast. Like I think, one of the things that, Leigh Marie and I probably feel is like we know what the difference between good and not good is. I think a lot of people are really bad at knowing what good is. Right? I've just seen monsters. I've seen people that can process information many times faster than I can at MIT. And I can just immediately tell if I talk to someone, this person has something very, very special. And, when I look at a lot of startups, and I'll be very honest, in Silicon Valley, I just don't think that they're staffed that well. Like I think most big companies have more talent density than most startups in the Silicon Valley. That's just because, most startups are chasing people that were from X company or from Y company. Most people that leave from X or Y company are the people that are the worst from that company, right? So it's actually, I think spotting talent is a very, very hard problem, but like you have to have seen talent before to actually even spot the talent. And I will say also Silicon Valley has the best talent too, or we do have great talent. And I'm not saying, by the way, that the rest of the country doesn't have great talent, but if you want to build an in-person company from day one, it's going to be hard. Like you're just setting yourself up for many, many disadvantages in the very beginning.
Do you disagree with his take? You shrugged your shoulders like maybe you disagreed with part of his take.
Let's see. What was the part that I disagreed with?
Oh, the shittiest people leave big companies.
Yeah,
my point is the people you are getting that are very quick to leave a company are usually speaking not the best people from the company.
Yeah.
So you can't just say I got a person with this logo, right? That's you're conflating two pieces of information. Right? I talk to people that are from the best companies and I'm just like, are you worried about these other companies taking your talent? They're like, no, the people that leave are usually the worst people that are usually leaving my company because those companies know how to retain their best people.
Yeah, I think I describe it kind of in terms of like, I think there's two things, vintages and then appropriateness of the logo. So I think depending on the year, let's take Stripe, for example, amazing logo, amazing eng culture, really great engineers. I have friends at Stripe that have convinced me that depending on what year they left Stripe, you can like make a judgment about like how good of an engineer they are. Because I think there are just certain time periods where, there's time periods for every hypergrowth company where kind of like the OGs who are usually quite good, or some of them are quite good, leave. Maybe because they want to start their own company or something like that. And there are time periods where, maybe you have people that are leaving for not as good of a reason. So there's that. And then two, I think it's also tempting to just say, oh man, I got a person from Figma. Like they must therefore be good. But if they are not sort of good in the way that your company needs them to be good, especially like if it's not just for something like a certain type of engineering, then it could not actually be that helpful for your company.
Yeah. And on the vintages point, are you saying like those that stayed at Stripe for either not long enough or way too long probably don't fit the bullseye of the vintage of someone that was able to rise through Stripe, but also had the ambition to at some point go leave and do something else?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I appreciate you both doing this. I really do. It's been like almost an hour and 10 minutes, if you believe it. Thank you. It's a thrill to just get to work with you. Like, I think I speak on all of our behalfs. Like, it's just really fun. And I do think that there is something seductive about ambition. And when you see someone else that has huge ambition, it's you feel it, like it permeates, and it permeates to your team. It permeates through these walls at Kleiner Perkins. Like we feel that ambition, and I've said this to you before, but John Doerr has a famous quote where when you see someone that convinces you that they have the ability to pull the future forward into their present, it's a very energizing feeling. And that's that feeling that I think you give us, is this feeling that you're quite convincingly going to pull the future forward. I just can't wait. I can't wait to see what you do. I really can't. It's amazing.
Well, really great to sort of be able to work with you guys. Honestly, it's been a roller coaster ride the last year. And thanks for putting up with us.
Of course. Yeah. Are you hiring?
We're hiring for every role. Yeah, we're hiring
every role.
Yeah, we're hiring for engineers. So if you want to work at a very high performance engineering company, come join Codeium. We're hiring across the sales organization. We're hiring account executives, mid-market, commercial, enterprise, strategic account executives. We're hiring sales leaders. There are lots of companies that currently want to use Codeium, and we'd love to be great partners to them. So across the board on go-to-market, across the board on engineering, if you're excited about the opportunity here, about rewriting software as we know it, come join Codeium.
When you hear the word grit, what do you think of?
Being truth-seeking when it's very, very hard to, when it's humiliating to, actually changing course, when you know in your bones that it's going to be a very, very tough decision, and it's easier to not do it otherwise.
Varun, Leigh Marie, thank you.
Thanks, Juven. This was great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.